Heinrich, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. Hi, Alexa. Thank you for joining us this morning. Alexa is a social media manager for St. Petersburg College in Florida. Active on Twitter where she talks about alt accessibility and using camel case in their hashtags. She really hates ASCIIR. I hope I pronounced that right. So, Alexa, do you want to tell people a bit about you? People who are not familiar with you can learn what you do and what you're about.
Sure. So, hi everyone, and thank you, Juana, for having me on your show. I'm very excited to be here. I am a social media manager. I'm originally from Chicago in Illinois, and I've been working in social media for almost a decade now. And
Oh,
I became familiar with accessibility for social media content by accident. So I became really interested in learning more about it and how I could further accessibility with my peers and in higher education. So I started to write about it and talk about it a lot. And here I am years later. I talk about it nonstop and I have no plans on stopping. But I'm now located in Florida in the Tampa Bay area where it's beautiful most of the time, and I work for a small local college in the area.
How many students is at that college? And do
Oh,
you have a disability service
we do have
program?
disability services. I don't know how many thousands of students we serve every year, just because it is considered like a junior college. So we have students here who are here for 2-year degrees and 4-year degrees, but also some short-term credentials. But we do have 11 campuses in our county. So we're one of the largest
Oh,
community
okay.
colleges in the state of Florida.
Oh, okay, cool. So, so did you just kind of fall into accessibility, or there was someone in your office who had a disability, right? Was that in Chicago or Florida? Did that happen?
So when I was working in Chicago for another college system, I had kind of a mix of responsibilities in addition to social media. And one of those things was putting sliders, so images, onto our homepage. And one day I was doing that, and I don't have a background or a degree in web development or web design. I have a graphic design degree. But the one day when I was doing that, the digital strategist on my team asked me if I was putting alt text on those images. And I kind of just looked at her like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so she explained what alt text was used for and its purpose. And I was just floored that I wasn't doing something that was so crucial to how people get information from us. So I started to do more research into that and learning more about it for social media, since that was my primary job function. And I have just never stopped learning about it. And now I teach other people about it.
With all the talk about accessibility, do you think that have you seen a big difference between, say, a few years ago? Not many people were talking about accessibility. You've been doing this for over a decade now, which is a long time. So are you seeing that a lot more people are being open to including accessibility practices in their programs, on their websites? Are you seeing more of that now, or is it really slow progress since you started?
I think it's definitely picked up speed with a lot of people working in digital spaces, just because not only do we have more people talking about it from their personal viewpoint or their personal experience, but then you also have platforms like Twitter that are very open about how they handle accessibility on their platform with their services, how to do it with content. and then adding features like the alt text badge that you can actually see on images and the
Yeah.
alt text reminder. But again, Twitter's progress is thanks to advocates and the disabled community for calling them out a few years ago when they weren't doing something that was accessible. And so they said, you know what, we're going to do better. And they have done better. And it's been really nice to see. So more people are really picking up on the fact that they should be creating accessible content for digital spaces.
Yes, I think that Twitter is one of the better platforms for accessibility. I think they really listen to their customers. Everybody that has a Twitter account on those, so that's been really helpful. And
Yeah.
LinkedIn has been a little bit slow on that. You can add alt text now to images on LinkedIn, so that's good. That's progress. And then you
Mhm.
have other captioning on the live events, so that helps too. So I know you created a guidebook on accessibility. Would people need to create a book on accessibility, or was it something you came up with completely on your own?
I had a lot of people telling me to write a book, which was very daunting. And I went back and forth on that idea for a really long time because I just didn't think that I was capable of putting together a book. And then one of my friends actually pointed out, you've already written the book. It's just in a million different pieces across the
Wow.
internet. And it's in blog posts, it's in the tweets that you share, it's in some of the articles you've written for other websites. I was like, you're right. And so when I started to put together the guidebook, I basically opened all the blog posts I'd written, all the articles I'd written, and my own presentation that I give to other marketers and started pulling information. So once I had an outline, it was a lot easier, but it was still a really daunting task to put together a book, especially since I decided I'm going to design it too. So I designed the layout, the cover, everything for my book. I wrote it. Most of the images in there I either took or found elsewhere, and then I self-published it. So it was really from start to finish a labor of love, and I was very excited once it was finally done.
Yeah, yeah. I was very book that has all the information in one place rather than looking for it all over the internet. It's a good central place to find all the accessibility practices, to include in your content. For someone who's like completely new to making the content accessible, the website, like someone who's clueless, what are the first initial steps they can take to make the content more accessible?
Well, I think when it comes to accessibility, less is more, simple is better. So a lot of times we overcomplicate the content that we want to produce, and it makes it a lot harder to make it accessible. You have people that are putting out these infographics in a single tweet or really overcomplicated language in their tweets that doesn't always translate very well for people who use screen readers. So I think a lot of times just simple is better. And that's kind of what I do when I create content, because I'm very conscious of the fact that I have a lot going on with my job. So when I create content, I want to make sure that it conveys the message that I need it to convey, but it's also easy enough for me to make accessible in a short amount of time. So I'm not going overboard with my images. I'm choosing things that are easy for me to produce in an accessible manner.
What are to use alt text in my images, but I tend to get too wordy. And so, how do you? And I'm sure many other people have this conundrum. When you're adding a quote code, like an image that has a block quote,
Mhm.
How do you put that in alt text? If you have a quote and an image, how do you add that in alt text?
So, with any image, I always ask myself, because I'm the content author, what is the most important information I need someone to take away from this particular image? And if it's an image that has a block quote on it, which I really love those, I think they work really well as graphics because they're usually less wordy. I will do something as simple as blue graphic. The quote reads, I'll write out the quote, and then if it quotes someone, I'll add their name at the end. So it gets all the important information across that I need someone to know. And
Right.
hopefully the tweet or the post that you have written with it complements that quote. So it's really important when it comes to alt text for images on social media to think about your post as a whole. Yes, you're writing alt text for an image, but how does it complement the rest of your post? What kind of information is someone getting from both components of your
Right,
post?
right. Okay. Okay. So, what is some of the annoying things that people do with their alt text? Because I know you've got some concerns.
So, because alt text has become more visible, especially on Twitter, you have a lot of people who are beginners with alt text that are kind of trying to figure out what to use it for and seeing it as an extension of a marketing tool. In reality, it's not meant to be a marketing tool, it's an accessibility tool. So you have people that like hide messages in their alt text or they hide jokes in there. I've seen a lot of media outlets that will put like photographer credits in their images and that's it, instead of describing the actual image. So I just think it's really important for people to remember that alt text is not for the sighted. It is meant for people who need screen readers to access that information. So you need to describe your
Yeah.
image, and that's it. You can, of course, be a little bit more creative with your alt text, especially if you have a very visually impressive image, but really, you need to describe your image, and that's it.
And yeah, that's really interesting. I do see that a lot on stock photography website, and the alt text they have just like different words, which is they just have the photographer's name with the image on photography websites. So when you're downloading an image, you need to change the alt text.
Yeah, I know that I believe Adobe Bridge is working on something where when you input alt text into the metadata on the platform, it stays with that image. But I'm not too familiar about how they're, because that to me, that's mind blowing. I think that's amazing, but I don't know how they actually accomplish that. So that would be really cool if it just worked like that across the internet of here's the alt text and you could still change it, but it's there if you need it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important to make. I mean, is accessibility is talked a lot now, but it's being made because it's still new to many people. Is it important to explain to people why accessibility is important?
Yes, I think it is. And I think there's a number of reasons why it's important. So again, I work in marketing. So of course, I'm always going to tell people that accessibility is important because we don't want to exclude anyone from a conversation. We don't want to exclude disabled users from our conversation. But a lot of times I need more of an argument than that when I'm talking to other marketers or I'm talking to college leadership. There's a few other reasons that accessibility is important. Another one is that at some point or another in our lives, everyone is going to experience disability, either through age, illness, or injury. So that's really important to think about. No one is exempt from disability. When it comes to marketing, if you make your content accessible, you're going to reach more people, which as a marketer is my main purpose in life. I want to reach as many people as possible with my message. And if I make my content accessible, I'm going to do that. And then, of course, the last argument that I always use, if you don't make your content accessible, you could open yourself to legal trouble. You could get sued for not having an accessible website, for not having an accessible facility. So that's something that's really important to think about, especially if you're a small business. A lot of people cannot afford to have an accessibility lawsuit, like literally cannot afford to pay for that. So that's something really important to think about.
Small businesses who are doing most of the work themselves, but should they hire an accessibility expert or hire somebody to take care of that aspect of their business to make their content more accessible? Should they hire someone or should they do it themselves, even though they have so much other things to do?
I think when it comes to digital accessibility, especially, it's really important to hire a professional, an expert who does web development, web content for a living. Not only because you want your content accessible, but there are a lot of small businesses out there that could have better websites in general that would help them with grow their business and be more prominent in their particular industry. But it's especially important if you want to have accessible content. Um, Digital accessibility is not a foreign concept to people who work in web development. It's been talked about a lot longer in web development than it has been for social media. So I think it's important that any business owner invest in someone who can support their website in an accessible manner.
Yeah. I'll talk about captioning, closed captioning. What are the common mistakes that people have with adding closed captioning to their videos?
Well, one of the common mistakes I see is just people getting confused about closed captioning versus open captioning. So I think that's always kind of interesting. So I always explain to people the difference. So closed captioning is when you can turn your captions on and off. So you get the option. It's things like YouTube, Netflix, most streaming services have closed captioning. Most of our social media platforms have closed captioning now, which is really nice. And then open captioning is when you've burned the captions into the video. So they're just there. You can't turn them off. You can't move them around, which is a nice part of closed captioning, is that sometimes you can move them around the screen and they do resize with screens. So that's usually where I start with people so they understand the difference. Closed captioning is normally preferred just because it gives the viewer more options. When it comes to actual captions, I know the one that our friend Meryl likes to talk about a lot is when people do their closed captions in all caps. That's not helpful for anyone, really. I use captions for everything that I
Yeah.
watch when possible because cognitively, it's easier for me to absorb visual information versus audio information. So when captions are in all caps, I just feel like someone's yelling at me and it's actually harder for me to read the
Yeah.
captions. So that's definitely the
Yeah.
biggest one. Yeah, I don't want my TV show to be yelling at me the entire time, even if it is an action show. I appreciate when sentence case is used for captions.
Yeah. I have a lot of gripes about people, the way people add their closed captioning, because a lot of marketing people, they have their videos, they do add captioning, but they use their brand colors as background for closed captioning, which could be bright. any kind of bright color or white background with the brown color font, like in pink on white background. And so annoying. And I talked about this on LinkedIn. I said, doing captioning is for people who need to know what's going on in videos, for hearing people too. But it should be very simple, black background with white or yellow text, or even a dark gray background is fine
Mhm.
with white
Yeah,
or
I
yellow
agree.
text. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
such a
which I didn't realize that. As I didn't realize that with the color, because obviously you want good contrast, but I didn't realize that color could
right.
be so distracting until Meryl pointed it out to me. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So yeah, it's got to be, white on black, black on white. Keep it simple and straightforward.
Yeah,
I like how with YouTube captions, there's like a slight transparency to it, so it's not so jarring on the screen, but that's my preference. But yeah, got to keep it simple when it comes to your captions. It's not an opportunity to be another branded moment.
yeah, yeah. It's not about branding. It's something you don't include captioning in your brand is different. It's an accessibility feature. So just keep it
Hmm.
simple. And then you're creating less work yourself. Keep it simple,
Yeah.
black with a white yellow
Yeah.
text. But what do you think about Instagram captioning on the reels and the videos they have? I'm not sure I like it. It's readable, so you can follow it,
Hmm.
but they show one or two words at a time, and I'm not a big fan of that. That can be a problem, right?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of how Instagram handles captions. I'm glad that it's an option now because for a really long time, you had to do open captions outside of the app and then upload your video. So now you can actually do captions in the app, which is nice. But there's a lot of there's so many different video components with Instagram, and there doesn't seem to be one consistent way to caption videos in Instagram. So they have closed captions, but then they have a caption sticker, and it gets really confusing. But I also just don't like how they give you so many stylistic choices with captions. I just want straightforward captions. If
Yeah,
they can make it
yeah,
look like YouTube captions, I think that's what we would all prefer, but they're
yeah,
way too focused on creativity, which I get it, it's Instagram, but creativity has to
right.
take a back seat to accessibility. So you can be creative, but
Yeah,
we need to focus on accessibility first and foremost.
right. That's what I like about YouTube is that you don't have the capability to change the captions.
Mhm.
It's the way they are, and it's like that for a reason. But yes, Instagram
Yeah,
has, yeah, I think that sends the wrong message to people. That, okay, this is how you can
I
play around with the captions. It's not sending the right message. But Facebook, they only have one way of displaying the caption. If you do a live event or video, the captions are like YouTube, basically. It's just
yeah,
one way to hit the caption. And
yeah,
so it's very different with Instagram. They do complicate it, I
yeah.
think.
My
So,
one complaint with Facebook and their captioning system is when I go to upload a video directly to Facebook and then I can upload an SRT caption file, which is awesome. I love when platforms let you do that. But Facebook kind of hides the fact that you need to give your SRT captions file a specific name. So it needs a specific naming system in the file name. And I get a lot of people are like, Facebook isn't accepting my captions file. I don't know what to do. And then I have to tell them, oh, write it like this and then see if it takes your captions. So they kind of hide that fact, which I don't know if they do it intentionally or they just kind of don't realize that their naming system should be a little bit more obvious. But yeah, it was really frustrating when I first tried uploading videos with SRT files because I kept getting an error. And then I
Oh,
finally realized, oh, the file name is incorrect. They need a specific one.
I didn't realize that. I haven't uploaded any videos, so I didn't realize that. So it's better to avoid that problem. It's better to upload a video with burned-in caption. Is that
I
better?
I mean, if they don't make it more obvious, then yes, but I have it on the accessible social website, the naming convention that they need to use because I was so frustrated with trying to figure out how to do it. So I'm like, I need to put this somewhere more obvious. So I would still do closed captions whenever possible. But if someone runs into a problem where closed captions suddenly don't feel like an option, then yes, obviously open captions is still a good accessible option.
Yeah, it sounds like something they need to simplify for
Agreed.
Facebook. But now now my mind went blank. So is there anything else you would like to add, Alexa, for beginners who we talked about it a little bit, but
Well,
um, for the website, for the website, what are the first things they can do on the website to make it more accessible? Like, because when you
so
roll all this stuff out, people they're like too overwhelmed, and then they just don't start. So, what is a couple of steps they can take for the website to make it more accessible?
again, keep it simple, but making sure that all of your images have alt text applied to them. A lot of different platforms out there allow you to write alt text for the images you upload. So GoDaddy, WordPress does it. I am a big fan of using Webflow. That's what I have my websites built through. And I really like Webflow because they are big champions for accessibility. And not only can I write alt text for my images, but they have a color contrast checker. They have a little audit built into the website editor so that if I forget to put the proper heading order in, it'll actually turn red and it'll let me know, like, hey, you skipped a header. Or if an image is missing alt text, they'll let me know. So I really, really like Webflow. They are a no code website builder. I don't have web dev skills. I don't know how to code, but both my accessible social website and my personal website are built through Webflow, and I did them myself. So they make it really easy to learn how to build a good accessible website. So yeah, finding a platform that works for you and allows you to make accessible choices, I think is really great. If you can find something that's simple and clean, that's always going to work better from an accessibility standpoint. Because again, it's easier to make simple things accessible rather than super complex web pages that have like
Yeah,
things that are
yeah,
scrolling and moving and flashing. So, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Webflow, which they know. We've talked about my websites before about how much I love that they have accessibility features built into the platforms. That's really nice. And I think a really big key thing to remember.
yeah. I've never heard of them.
No? Oh,
I'll look into it. I've
we can
never
talk about
Flow.
them later.
No,
I love them. But I think another big thing to
oh,
remember when it comes to accessibility is something that our friend Meryl says, which is progress, not perfection. No one is ever going to be perfect at accessibility. I'm certainly not, but it's worth it to always keep learning and basically doing your best,
yeah,
putting in the effort.
yeah. Yeah, it's important to get feedback. I mean, I'm sure people just tell you freely, no, this isn't right. And um,
Is it
I was wondering, what's your favorite part about your job?
about my job? Oh, It's kind of strange. I really like running from campus to campus and talking to students and just getting, I love student stories, which is great because that makes the best social media content. I'm a huge baby, so every year when we have graduation, which has been very different the last few years because of the pandemic, I
Yeah.
I bawl, I cry at graduation because
Aw.
it reinforces why I work in higher education, which is I like seeing people succeed and get an education and change their lives. So graduation is very special to me, especially because I do have a lot of contact with students. So when I see one of my students graduate, it means a lot to me. When I worked in Chicago my last year at graduation, I knew a number of the students that were graduating, and one of them was this guy who's like 6'7". He's just really tall, and I was on the ramp as he came up to get his diploma, and he picked me up and like hugged me and carried me for like 5 feet. I'm like, no, no, put me down, go get your diploma. But he was just so excited. So that's
That's
yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I love. I love just seeing students succeed and change their lives through education.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's the human interaction with students every day. That's the best part.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Plus, I like when
And what
they take an
is,
interest in my job too. Is always nice when they ask me questions about what it's like to
yeah,
work in social media. So
yeah. Are these people interested in working in social media or they're just asking about your job?
I have some students that are really interested in working in social media. I've had students who are interested in it from a journalism standpoint. And then obviously you have younger students that are interested from a streaming standpoint, from an influencer standpoint. I have students that just really want to work in marketing. So yeah, there's a range of students that are really interested in working in social media, which is great because now you can get actual degrees in social media, which didn't exist when I was in college.
Right, right. Has anybody ever called you an influencer in social media?
I've had friends I have had friends in marketing call me an accessibility influencer, which makes me sweat, honestly. It makes me like my hands just started sweating thinking about it because as much as I love what I do within marketing and accessibility, I always have to remind people that there are a lot of other people who do what I do. There are people who do it better. There are people who have been doing it longer. And most importantly, there are people who have been doing it because they live the experience of needing accessibility in digital spaces. So I personally use captions, but if captions were turned off, I would still be able to comprehend the audio. So I just have to remind people that I focus on accessibility and educate others on accessibility because I think it's important. It's not vital to my existence, my current existence. So I get really twitchy when people are like, "Oh, you're an influencer or you're like the queen of accessibility." I'm like, "No, I'm not. There are people who have been doing this longer and do it better and do it for better reasons than me." So I'm just one person trying to make the world a better place. There are a lot of people out there who are doing the exact same thing and deserve the same amount of credit and the same amount of respect and recognition.
Yeah. But even if they've been in the field longer, it doesn't make you not an influencer. I mean, it's the accessibility space is very small, so you can all share your knowledge together.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure when you get the influencer to thrown at you. I like my hands are sweating right now. So,
yeah.
um, but Yeah,
So,
it is nice to be recognized for my work and to feel that what I'm doing is
yeah,
important. So I do appreciate it from that perspective.
yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering, um, do influencers, do they have to do more work? I mean, do you have any idea how that even works when people have the influencer title?
I
I
feel
didn't know
like
anything about it. You call someone an influencer, and then does anything change after that? Do they get sponsors? Do they get, I don't know.
I feel like when you're labeled an influencer for anything, there's a lot of pressure to maintain a certain image, a certain content process or schedule. So I try to make it really clear with people I have a life outside of social media and my accessibility work. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's not like much of a life, but she can't be seen. I do have a cat behind me that I spend a lot of time with. We go outside a lot. I play The Sims, I play video games. So I don't want someone to ever think that my entire existence is solely devoted to educating people about social media or marketing or accessibility. I love those things, but I do a lot of other things outside of that. I own my own business. So there's a lot going on in my life. So I think it's really hard for a lot of people when they're suddenly called an influencer or the person for something because there's all this pressure to maintain that image. And for a lot
Yeah.
of people, that's just not possible. Now, of course, there are influencers who get paid, sponsors, they get, paid for advertisements. I don't even know how I would handle any of that. So I'm not a good businesswoman. So I'm very envious of people who are able to juggle that with their life. That is not the life for me.
So it sounds like you have good boundaries with your work life and your home life. A lot of people don't have that. The work life kind of bleeds into their personal life. So how do you keep it separate? It sounds like you have a good balance. You're very mindful of your personal life. You have the cat. I'm assuming the cat reminds you, hey, I need attention. Stop working. No.
Yes,
So how do you keep it separate? It's hard, right?
it is very hard. And it's been a learning process because I started doing professional speaking engagements in 2020. I did 60 of them last year, which is more than one a week. So,
60?
yes, 60.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, finding the balance between personal and professional has been very hard for me. But thankfully, I am blessed with a couple things. And I think, recognizing your privilege when you're successful is a big deal. So for me, I have a very, very exceptional team that I work with at the college. My coworkers are amazing. If any of them are listening right now, I love you guys. They are so supportive of what I do when it comes to my work outside of the college and very encouraging. The president of our college thinks what I do is amazing. She gets really like excited whenever she hears about something new I've done, which I love. But they give me the flexibility to do things like this, to present on a Tuesday at noon. So I take lunch and I give a presentation. They're very, very supportive about that, which I really appreciate. And then my own parents. I live with my parents. I moved to Florida in 2019, so right before the pandemic started. I'm still living with them because we're in the middle of
Oh,
a
wow.
pandemic and it's just easier for me financially and professionally to live with them. I pay them rent, but I'm living with my parents. So it affords me more financial flexibility to take on speaking engagements, to travel to a conference, to give a presentation, stuff like that. But other than that, I just have to remind myself that I am allowed to enjoy things outside of work. So I unplug, I log off, I have do not disturb on my phone, which I live and die by. And I really like to take naps. So, the weekend rolls around, I'm going to take 3 or 4 naps before we get back to Monday. So just reminding myself that everything has to be a balance.
Yeah.
Because if I'm running at 25%, my work is suffering. So if I'm not at 100%, neither is my work.
Right, right. I think that's great. You have that balance. I think being close to your parents, you can keep an eye on them. I live with my mom myself.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of like her caregiver. She's a little bit better now, but I'm the caregiver. So that's why I live with her. And then I have my sister here also who moved in. And so,
I moved in
it's
with
nice. 3 women and a house. 3 women, just think about that.
I moved in with my parents because I was living in Chicago where it's very expensive to live. So I moved in with them initially to save money. And then the pandemic started and they're like, why don't you just stay here for a while? I was like, okay, no complaints there. My mother's an excellent cook. I will not complain.
Uh, yeah. What kind of things does she cook? That's your favorite?
Oh gosh, it's so hard for me to decide. She makes, all of her pasta dishes are amazing. She makes excellent chili. My dad asks for chili like every week. But yeah, just about anything that my mother cooks is really, really good. So, and thankfully I've been able to learn from her over the years. So I also like to cook, but yeah, she's an excellent cook. But they're both really supportive of what I do.
Yeah.
So whenever I have a presentation, they're like, okay, we need to be quiet from this time to this time. Don't go to Alex's door. It's just really funny. They'll distract the cat for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with me too. I mean, my dogs have to leave the room because otherwise my little one will start barking and then I say, you have to go now. You
Yeah,
have to go now. Then I close the door. I feel kind of bad, but that's just the way it is. It's not for long. It's an hour max. So
my cat
however long.
is curled up behind me right now. So
Oh, it's so
yeah,
cute.
yeah,
She's
the
adorable.
trick is to put something
So I just
weird.
wanted to shout out some people here that said hi. Krista says hi, ladies. Krista Mariana.
Hi, Krista. Thank you for
Very great.
joining
You
us.
should follow her. And Andrew Bennett. One
Ooh,
ladies from San Francisco.
awesome.
He's on the West Coast. I love San Francisco. I would just live there if it wasn't gonna California wasn't gonna fall in the ocean. And it's going to one day. I just feel like after the big one, it's just gonna fall in the ocean. I grew up in California, so I grew up with earthquakes. So
Ooh,
but I moved away because I didn't really want to deal with earthquakes. So.
I've only been to California once, and it was actually this past
Oh,
June.
really?
I went
Yeah.
to San Francisco for a conference. That city is amazing. I was raised in a
It
very
is.
flat state, and now I live in a very flat state. To go to San Francisco was mind-boggling for me. It's like there's so many.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing, and my friend took me down the long, winding street that it's famous for that I can't remember the name of right now. But yeah, San
Yeah.
Francisco, amazing. So, hi, Andrew.
I forgot the name of it.
I know I can't
I
remember.
forgot. I did. And like Stacy said, this has been really helpful.
Oh, good.
Stacy's great. No, I have to be honest. I'm not exactly sure what Stacy does, but she works. But she has a podcast, and she works with different people. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure what she does exactly. More like storytelling, I would say. Thank you for being here, Stacy. It's good to see you.
Lombardi. Stacy just put in the chat, Lombardi. It's Lombardi Street.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes. And then, did you see the chocolate place? Ghirardelli Square?
Yes, I did. I saw it.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yes, I
Yeah.
could smell it too. I could smell the chocolate the one day. So, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
San Francisco is amazing. So good conference there too.
Yeah. They really have. They have um, a Chinese area, little Italy, and then other like little pockets of the city. With different cuisines
Hmm.
and it's great. Yeah.
I will say,
It's very diverse. That's what I like about it.
yeah,
It's very
I
diverse.
will say that as much as I loved San Francisco, the entire time I was there, all I could think was this city must be a small nightmare for anyone who has mobility issues or is a wheelchair user because there's
Yeah.
just so
It
many
is.
hills. Some of the hills are so steep that they turn the sidewalk into stairs. I was like, I would not want to slip and fall on any of these hills because they are
I
steep.
know. Yeah.
So yeah, very, very, but still a very impressive city. I was very excited that that was my first experience with California. So,
You have to go to Southern California, like Los Angeles, Disneyland, because everybody goes to Disneyland. It's
I
a
live in
tourist.
Florida. I can go to Disney World.
I know, right, right, you do. Yeah, because it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, Lombardi's right.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, now I remember. And then there's something else. I haven't been there in so many years. It's been many years since I've been there. But a place I really like is Santa Cruz.
Okay, I've
Santa
heard
Cruz
really
is
good things about Santa
beautiful. I would live there if I could. It's really beautiful. It's right there by the pier, and it's not. San Francisco is very congested. Chris Marion lives in San Francisco. Chris
Oh,
Marion
okay. We
lives
have a
there.
lot of San Francisco people then. I love how she said, I love Webflow. Yeah, again, if anyone is not familiar with Webflow, I highly recommend checking it out. It's just a really great platform to use for building your website. But then again, it has those wonderful accessibility features built into it. Um, I cannot recommend it enough. I mean, I probably could, but I just never stop recommending it. And I think another really good tool for people to be familiar with when it comes to accessibility, especially if they're building a website, is the Adobe Color site. So you can build color
Okay.
palettes with the Adobe Color site, obviously, but they also have a contrast checker tool to make sure that you're meeting WCAG contrast standards, which is awesome. But then they also have a colorblind tool. So you can see how someone who has color blindness, so there's 3 different types that I cannot pronounce, you can see how your colors would look to them through a colorblind lens, which is really helpful. I could spend hours on the Adobe Color site just making palettes because once
I'll
once you
have
get
to
the
see that.
contrast right, then you have to get it right through the colorblind tool, and it's almost like a game of making your colors accessible. So I really like the Adobe Color site. Everyone should definitely check it out.
Yeah, that sounds good. I have to check it out. I can't believe I haven't heard of it before. So I'll
Yeah,
definitely have a lot to look into. So,
yeah.
is there
Adobe does
anything
some
else?
really great things with accessibility.
Yeah, I've heard they have a captioning tool, don't they? In Adobe Premiere, I
Yes.
believe. Yeah, that's pretty. I don't know. You have to add the captions, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't. Yeah. Okay, so it's pretty good that way. But this has been a great chat, Alexa. I'm really glad you were here this morning. It's coming up to 15 minutes, um, so I really appreciate your time. Do you have any last words to share with anybody before we sign off?
No, I just wanted to thank you for having me. I was really looking forward to this chat. We've been friends on Twitter and LinkedIn for a while now, so it was nice to kind
Yeah,
of see you
yeah,
face to face and hear
yeah.
your voice.
It was
So,
the
but
first
yeah,
time. It was the first time we were talking on video. So
yeah. So,
and
but again, I really appreciate you having me here, and this was a great
yeah,
conversation, and I look
yeah,
forward to us talking again.
yeah. Same here. It was really great to meet you. We'll talk. We'll talk again, of course. Maybe
Mhm.
we'll do another live. There's so much to talk about
There is.
accessibility. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and we'll see you next week. And next week, my guest is Krista Marian. Is my guest next week. So be sure to join us next week and have a great week, everybody. And I will see you later.
Bye.